I'm going to start this off with a disclaimer. I'm a nostalgist, and sometime in the early 90s, The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX for Game Boy was my first Zelda game. I'm the kind of person this game was remade for. It is a total nostalgia trip. When the first cutscene started and Marin's footsteps on the beach so perfectly echoed the way she moved in the original Game Boy game, I knew this was going to be the faithful reproduction that fans would be hoping for. But don't think that this game isn't a fun adventure for everyone, whether you've played the original or not. If you like top-down, sword-swinging adventures, mythical creatures, puzzles, and dungeons, then you'll be right at home here, whether you've woken the windfish before or not. If there's any single word to describe this remake of Link's Awakening, it is unequivocally charming. With its inclusion of enemies from the rest of the Zelda universe, its small but memorable cast of characters, and its twist on the typical Legend of Zelda story, Link's Awakening has always been a standout game in the series. And now, with its upgraded aesthetics and improved sound, Link has turned the charm up a notch. Link's smile when he catches a fish, the pitter-patter of his Pegasus boots when you charge them up, or Marin's gorgeous voice all can't help but give you a feeling of newfound joy as you explore Koholint Island and its many dungeons. While their roles are small, each character has an ability to really come alive with personality. Taryn's fatherly goofiness, Marin's innocence, and ability to soothe anything with her voice. You can even hear Popel's wife's exhaustion as she speaks about taking care of the many children that her and her husband have. For characters created so long ago, many of which only serve a small role in the story, they're surprisingly vibrant and, of course, charming. Link's Awakening is a perfect example of how to remake a decades-old game for its original audience and new. The graphics upgrade turns the island of Koholint into a Christmas toy-styled island that is still somehow almost space for space a replica of the original. While Link and his enemies are now free to move diagonally across the world, the environment is still clearly made out of individual squares of grass, stone, holes, and tree trunks. Only this time the camera will actually follow you across the sections rather than just scrolling one screen at a time. This gives you more space to move without having to wait for the camera to scroll like it did in the original version. It's a nice enhancement that the Switch can easily afford. The dungeons are also almost one-to-one replicas of the original game. Whether this is good or bad is up to how you feel about the original game. You may breeze through them too quickly if you still remember how each one goes, but if the dungeons are new to you, you're in for a healthy challenge. As is typical in early Zelda games, each dungeon is home to a new item you'll need to finish your quest. In most cases, the use of this item is the focal point of completing the puzzles within the dungeon. It's likely that you'll need the new item to take down the dungeon's final boss, and adding the item to your inventory helps you reach new areas of Koholint Island that were inaccessible to you previously. But not every puzzle hinges on your newfound toy. Some of them are based on vague hints and sometimes just dumb luck. It's not uncommon to have to defeat enemies in a specific order to unveil a chest hiding a key, or to be given a hint referencing a type of enemy by name, without ever having a reason to assume that you know that enemy's name, or just to find a staircase by cutting down a specific bush. And while there are statues in the dungeons that offer you some hints to the puzzles, they don't indicate which puzzle they're helping you solve, and you still have to solve a puzzle to find the beak so that you can speak to the statues. This makes the game's compass all the more handy. Once you've found the dungeon's compass, it will play a short tone in any room that has a key in it for you to find. This helps narrow down the list of rooms that you'll have to revisit if you find yourself stuck. While we're talking about hints, inside of a dungeon isn't the only place that you're going to need a hint to figure out where to go next. In between dungeons, you'll need to learn where to find the next key, as well as the location of the next dungeon. Scattered around the island are photo booths that are here to help, and they are absolutely everywhere. The phones inside only reach one person, Old Man Alrira. Alrira is an anxiety-ridden old man in Mabe Village that will only speak to you over the phone. He offers vague hints that lightly tap on the fourth wall rather than just breaking it down. These hints can be valuable direction in a game that doesn't offer you much more than 3 words at the end of a dungeon to point you where to go next. The only problem with Alrira's hints is that he knows where to go, but he doesn't always know how to get there. I found myself wandering in circles for a while when he constantly told me I had to get into the castle, but had no comment on how to actually open up any pathways to it. The best advice is to always make sure your loose ends are tied up. It's likely that they'll break down any roadblocks to your next destination. The downside to all this new high resolution and fancy graphics is that the optimization can be pretty poor. When you're outside in the environment, you'll regularly see frame drops, whether you're playing in docked mode or handheld. This isn't enough to affect gameplay, but it's certainly noticeable. It seems that the game is much too aggressive in loading off-screen areas of the game so that there's no loading screens between areas. So your trade-off for not having to wait at all from one area of the island to the next is that you'll see some random choppiness that seems to have no rhyme or reason to when it happens. This could likely be fixed with a software update, but I'm not holding out hope. My biggest complaint, though, is the incessance of text boxes. When text is finished appearing, you'll still have about a 2-second wait before you can hit a button and close the box. You'll see a text box appear every single time you pick up a guardian acorn, a piece of power, or try to pick up a stone that's just too heavy for you right now. It really breaks up the gameplay, and it can get pretty aggravating. It's likely after half an hour of play, you'll be quickly smashing the A button to close a text box, just to make you wait for it to be ready to close on its own. All that said, I think if that's the biggest complaint about the game, Nintendo did pretty well. Another new enhancement seen is the warp points as well as map markers. In the original game, each warp point would drop you off at a specific other warp point on the map. This meant you had to keep jumping in until you got to the location that you intended. Now you can choose whichever warp point you'd like on the map and instantly go there. This is big news for any level 30 gamer who is looking to shave off a little bit of time to make sure they can keep playing, rather than just walking. Being able to teleport back and forth between destinations can also help break up some monotony if you're the type of person who gets bored of killing the same enemies in the same areas and chopping down the same grass on the same screens over and over again. Koholint is just an island, but even Lent's Pegasus boots can only travel so fast. If you've played Breath of the Wild before, the map markers will not be a new concept for you. This lets you place stamps on the map for any point of interest that you want to remember. If there's a really annoying enemy here that you want to get around, put a little stamp to remind you to stay away. Is there a piece of treasure that you can't access because you haven't obtained the hookshot yet? Place a stamp there to remind yourself to come back later with the correct item. These stamps are invaluable for anyone looking to save time instead of hunting through every cave for that single piece of treasure that you couldn't reach before. I would be remiss if I let this review end without mentioning the music, but it would be unfair for me to judge any Nintendo game based on just the music because they've never even gone as low as mediocre. And the enhanced, almost orchestral re-envisionments of the classic Game Boy scores are now masterpieces in their own right. The audio in the game is incredibly clear, crisp, and accurate all the way through, but the music that accompanies your adventure is beautiful and at times entrancing. The towns have their own dulcet, welcoming themes, and the dungeons vary from creepy undertones to energetic boss fight soundtracks, and all the world in between is covered in Zelda's traditional, unforgettable adventuring theme song. I found myself unintentionally singing these tunes while I was at work, or even while I was playing other games. It's clear that as much heart went into the music as it did the gameplay itself. If it seems like I'm being a little hard on the game, understand that I do so completely out of love for one of my favorite titles. The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening remake for the Switch is a game that shows that modern remakes of classic titles can still be art, and that basic formulas can still be fun in a modern age. As a level 30 gamer though, it may be hard to find the time to put into this one. While the entire adventure is relatively short, it lacks any direction between its dungeons, and that's something that can make it difficult to put down and pick back up again with large spaces in between. And you're not likely to make a ton of progress if you only have a few minutes to put into the game here and there. Link's Awakening may be better suited as a game to play over a vacation, rather than one to slowly trudge your way through during lunch breaks at work. Spending extended time away from the island can make it very difficult to get your bearings back when all Iris hints just aren't enough to get you started again. Well, that's it for my long take on The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. You can find more of me and my voice on the Level 30 podcast, or sprinkled throughout various pieces of the Level 30 social media. Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to throw a like on your way out if you feel it's deserved, and I'll see all of you in the next level.